Hi Year 10 and welcome to Lesson 1 on consuming energy resources. This is the start of a new topic today. Before I talk to you about the new topic, I'd just like you to do this recall quiz from last lesson's learning. So the first one is a gap fill and then there are three other questions that I'd like you to complete. Please do these in the back of your exercise books and we will go through the answers shortly. Thank you. Okay, now that you've unpaused the video, let's go through the answers. So, the two ways of protecting the taiga are through national parks and wilderness areas. So we said that these were kind of making sure that there are areas within the Canadian or the Russian taiga that are protected. Okay, that under law they are protected, and that a certain amount of commercial development is allowed, but actually lots of commercial development is not. Okay, the areas are not only protected from harm in that way, but they also sometimes experience what we call active ecosystem management. Where decisions are made by rangers and other experts to interfere with the ecosystem in a certain way, which means that it's more likely to thrive and survive. Now we talked about if you have a large national park like Banff National Park in Canada, for example, what are some of the challenges that they experience in being successful, and that was what the second question was on this recall quiz. So we could have talked about a couple of things. So we talked about the size and how even though some of them are very big, they might not be big enough. That some of those pollution issues in surrounding areas in the taiga, they don't adhere to national park or wilderness area borders. Okay, they will happily move through a river into a national park and so on. If in the case of water pollution, it's the same for air pollution and so on. We also said that some of the species that live in the taiga are migratory species, so they move with the seasons, and that actually an animal may inadvertently move out of a national park or move out of a protected wilderness area and then be no longer subject to the same protection. So size is one challenge and one limitation to national parks and wilderness areas. We also talked about tourism, and we said that on the one hand, the funding from tourism helps to support the national park or the wilderness area. But actually tourists, whether it's intentionally or otherwise, do have a negative impact on the environment through things like litter, through disturbing animals in their natural habitats, and through the infrastructure that is required to be built in order to support the tourist industry. That obviously does require some deforestation, the building of roads, and so on. We talked about things like money and pressure. You can make a lot of money, you can generate a lot of wealth from some of these resources that are in this area in the taiga, and therefore trying to convince people that it should be protected through something like a national park may be a challenge. Then the third and fourth questions ask you to come up with organisations or groups, individuals, particular stakeholders that either support or otherwise the exploitation of the taiga. And we said that, or you might have put something like those people that do support the exploitation of the taiga would be people like businesses, perhaps businesses in certain parts of the tourist industry, but more so things like oil companies and those that are looking to exploit the tar sands. Sometimes local government and sometimes local residents. Okay, because by exploiting the taiga, you are creating jobs. So to a certain extent, they may support its exploitation. So deforestation in the taiga, mining, forestry, hydroelectric power, mining for fossil fuels, and so on. And then fourthly, those that would reject it would be environmentalists, people who lobby for protecting the environment, so environmentalists, or conservationists, also certain scientists and indigenous groups, those people, those communities that were originally in these locations, and that rely on them in cultural, spiritual, but also in social and economic ways as well, rely on this environment. So that's the do now task. To explain in a little more depth then, this new topic for today, this is actually topic 9 on the GCSE, so what would have been the last topic and the final topic on paper 3, which so far we've only done paper 3 via YouTube since the start of lockdown. And what we'll do here is look at the geography of energy supply and demand across the world. We'll look at how we classify energy resources, which parts of the world produce the most energy, and we'll look at how that's different to which parts of the world actually use the most energy, and the reasons for those particular patterns. We'll look a lot into renewable energy and other forms of energy and the impacts, but also the advantages that they can have. For today's lesson, I'd like you to write this title: How can we classify energy resources, and what are the environmental impacts of energy use and extractions? And that's really the two things that we're going to look at today. What types of energy are there? And there are 3 that we're going to be looking at. And then thinking about what impact using those types of energy and getting those types of energy, so extracting them, has on the environment. So if you can write that date and title now, and then we'll look at what that actually means shortly. So if we think about energy then, we use energy resources every day to light our homes, to power television and computers, cook food, and the energy that we use comes from a variety of different sources, such as oil, gas, coal, but also things like wind and water. With more people living on the planet, the global demand for energy continues to grow, and more resources are being used to provide this energy that we need. Obviously, we might see some changes to that due to changes in demand due to COVID-19, but we'll see how that pans out over time. The International Energy Agency, though, for now, has warned that current energy use is unsustainable. So it's important that we consider the range of energy sources that are available to us and also the environmental impacts that they have. So if we are used to getting our energy from one particular source, because that demand is going up, but the supply isn't necessarily increasing as well, then we end up in this Malthusian situation where there may be not enough supply to meet demand. So we have to look at what other types of energy resource exists. But also, as always, we need to think about what impacts these are going to have on the environment. The first category that I want us to look at today, and I want you